we're talking about the three seal, about the non-self.
Mm-hmm.
So what different the non-self and in Banya, Banya Sutra, what different the non-self and the emptiness?
Ooh, okay. Well, we can think of non-self as part of emptiness. This is how I think of it. Non-self is the idea of emptiness applied to us. Usually when we talk about emptiness, we're talking about the external world. That's how many Buddhist thinkers have approached that talk of emptiness. But basically, I don't see a difference. So it's just empty. Non-self is just emptiness applied to persons, applied to ourselves. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Kwang Yun?
Yes, I do have questions. On the right action, the first one, avoiding killing. Last year we have really huge problem at our house. I guess our house, it was built in 1948. So we get when it rains, we got a lot of ants that coming, and of course we feel really bad that we had to clean it up. But that was my husband's job. It's part of my job. But I feel really bad that having him clean it up instead of me. It's just like if he do it, if he does it, it's the same like I do it. And also that a couple of years ago, we had termite problems. So we have to have the termite company come in and seal our house. We know that we both acknowledge that we did massive killing. But how do we do? Is there any way to protect our house, our property, or even ants coming to our house of food and so, but also remaining not killing all these insects?
As I said, there are times when we just can't avoid it. I think if there are termites eating your house, I don't know if there's some way to non-violently encourage them to leave. I don't know if there's a way to do that. Somebody at university was just talking a little while ago. There's some kind of special vacuum that you can get to vacuum up ants that won't harm them. I've never seen it, but I've heard of that. And there's a monastery in the Tibetan tradition up in Washington State, and they had a real problem with, was it ants or termites? And they found where these insects were coming from. And so what they did was they removed as carefully as they could. It was like a dead tree stump or something. They removed it as carefully as they could and moved it into the forest. I think they actually took, maybe it was termites. I think they took down some wooden beams in one of their buildings and they just took them out and then replaced them. They had the resources to do that. I don't know if everyone who owns a home, has the resources to go that far, to find all the affected wood and carefully cut it out and remove it. We do what we can. We do what we can. I think in those instances where we just don't know what else to do other than killing insects, for example, is to be mindful of what we're doing. And there's health, you've got little kids, there are health issues and that kind of thing as well. So I think that we should do the best that we can, but when we don't know what else to do, we just acknowledge, I don't know what else to do in this situation. And then a good thing to do might be to say prayers for those beings. Sometimes non-Buddhists laugh about this. What, you're praying for ants and termites? What, that's ridiculous. But no, it's not. They're sentient beings, just like we are. If you think, what does an ant do? It spends all its time trying to satisfy its needs and avoid harm and suffering. I remember being a little kid and we learned in science class that you could use a magnifying glass to light a piece of paper on fire. And so we went outside and we were practicing with that. And then some of the other kids were like, hey, look, we can fry ants. And we did it. We did some of it. I did it too when I was a kid using a magnifying glass. And what does the ant do? When it gets too hot, it starts writhing and twisting and everything. It's in pain. It's terrified and in pain, to whatever extent that it can feel pain and fear. So it's not laughable. So for anyone watching, so in those times when you can't avoid killing, then a good thing to do would be to say prayers. Recognize that you're just can't do enough in this situation to protect life, and then say prayers for those beings who have died.
So what I did last year that after killing all these massive ants, so we both felt really bad. So I came to temple and samhoi for those because I feel like just so bad. We don't want to, but we have to. So we will do much better. We hopefully will do a better job this year when prepare for the rain season coming. So we hopefully to protect our house and so not to have too many of them.
You know, there's a tip for ants, and I don't know for sure if this works or not, but somebody told me if you mix vinegar and water and then wipe down surfaces, you're nodding your head in the back. Have you heard that? Huh. Okay. And another thing you can do is wipe the path. If you like scoop up the ants, if you see a trail of ants and you are able to scoop them up with paper or something and put them outside, then you wipe the place where they were walking. It breaks the trail, like the chemical trail that they leave, so they won't come back. So anyway, there are things that you can do. But there are cases where you can't avoid killing, so, but yes, coming to confession, that was very good. Okay. There are other questions? Yes?
You mentioned the Mahayana and the Theravada traditions. Which one is more closer to what the Buddha actually taught, or is that even a valid question?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So the question was between the Theravada and Mahayana, which is closer to what the Buddha actually taught? Well, if you ask a Theravada practitioner, they will tell you Theravada. If you ask a Mahayana practitioner, actually in the Mahayana we say that the Theravada teachings are genuine. The Buddha did teach this, but he also taught the Mahayana teachings. And it just depended on his audience, what those people were ready to receive, what teachings they were ready to receive. But none of the Buddha's teachings were written down for at least several hundred years after his entrance into nirvana. So there's no reason to think. So there was a particular oral tradition that was actually written down in Sri Lanka a few hundred years after the Buddha's death. There's no reason to think that that oral tradition wasn't shaped by the generations and the particular view that they liked in the Buddha's teaching. And the same thing with different Mahayana teachings. We see different sutras say slightly different things because they were written down in different locations at different times. So I think it's very difficult for us to say with absolute certainty the Buddha taught this and didn't teach that. But through textual analysis, and I don't know exactly how they do this, but modern scholars are able to determine, well, this text was compiled over time, or it's a combination of different texts. It claims to be one text, but it's a combination of different texts from different authors. But this text we can see, because of the kind of language it's using, and through analyzing the whole text, we can see it was written down by one author, and it appears to be very, very old. So the older the text, we can say maybe it's closer to the Buddha's original teaching, but original teaching for a particular community who are ready to receive that particular teaching. So it's really difficult to say. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
You were talking about how each of us are basically just energy that's constantly changing, and that some of us are more inclined towards one emotion over the other and stuff like that. And you also said that these emotions or inclinations carry over onto our next life as important. And I was wondering if our goal is to create some sort of a balance so that we don't have anything to carry over to the next life, something like more like a straight line.
Well, yeah, the idea is to completely overcome our ignorance, and therefore to overcome the creation of new karma and to purify all of our previous karma. So that, so then you're right, we won't have any more karma to pull us into another life. In terms of the emotional side of things, though, a Buddha has equanimity. So for us, an emotion will arise, and we might get carried away by it, by anger, by romantic love, by this or that or the other thing. But a Buddha has equanimity. If you look at images of the Buddha is always just sitting, and there's a slight smile on the face, yes? This is the visual expression of that calm. So for us, something disturbs our mind, and it's like the ocean in a hurricane. But for a Buddha, for an enlightened being, no matter what comes, clear as glass. Yes?
What is the symbol that the Buddha uses?
Oh, yes. Teaching. And then there's the mudra where he's touching the ground. He's saying, basically, I am the Buddha. And then I think there's another one you see, Kwante Ambotat, who will have her hand out. I think this one, I'm not an expert in Buddhist iconography, but I think this one is a sign of fearlessness. Yeah? So yeah, all these different hand postures do have meanings. Yeah, yes.
Why do you wipe your face and hands after you meditate?
I'm sorry?
Why do people rub their hands and face after they meditate?
I just do it because it feels nice.
I'm just going because everybody does it.
Yeah, so everybody does this after meditation. And then rubbing the eyes. Yeah, I just do it because it feels nice. No, I don't think it will get you closer to enlightenment any quicker.
That is the exercising after meditation.
I'm sorry?
Exercise.
It's maybe to like get the blood flowing again and help you wake up a little bit if you were getting a little sleepy. Yeah, okay, it helps you wake up. Okay, yeah, so for blood circulation it'll help you. It's like maybe like when you rub your eyes in the morning when you wake up, maybe that's what it's like. Okay, let me check the time here. Yes, let's start with our meditation. So again, we sit up. Oops. And it's easiest with these benches that we sit on to sit kind of on the edge of the bench. And then your legs, I've got my right foot on my left calf. And then I'm sitting up straight, and my head is forward. My head isn't down. We don't want to meditate like this. So I'm sitting up straight, my head is forward, but my eyes come down. Kind of rest comfortably in a place on the ground in front of me. I'm not focusing on a particular point on the ground. You can just let your eyes go out of focus a little bit. And then for my hands, I can just leave them on my lap like this. Or I can fold them in front of me like this. Although for myself, I find this has a tendency to kind of pull my weight forward if I do that. So I usually leave my hands like this, the right hand and the left. My thumbs touching, and I have my hands a little bit below my belly button. And again, when we push our thumbs together, if we find that we're really forcing our thumbs together, that means we're sort of pushing the meditation, we're grinding it too hard. But if we can't keep our thumbs together, if they keep pulling apart, then that means our energy is too up, we're too high strung. And then the tongue, the mouth is closed, and the tongue is on the roof of the mouth. And for our breathing, we're breathing in and out through the nose. And there are different places that we can settle the focus of our concentration. So the tip of the nose, the feeling of the breath as it enters and exits the nose, we can focus on that. We can focus on our heartbeat. We can put our focus a little bit below the belly button here. I generally recommend focusing on the breath at the nose. And so this helps us keep ourselves in the present. Inevitably, thoughts will arise and the mind will wander away. We'll start thinking about dinner later or what we have to do later or something that happened earlier in the day. But when we notice that happening, we just bring the mind back. We don't have to get into any judgment about, I'm doing it right, I'm not doing it right. Just when the mind wanders, bring it back. That's our practice, bringing the mind back again and again, and quieting the mind. Okay, so I will set the timer, and we'll meditate for a while, and then we'll get up and we'll walk around the altar here. Just try to continue keeping your mind present. And then we'll sit down and do a second session of meditation. So let's do the last prayer in the book one more time. I wish that this merit would all be extended to every being, that we together, all beings, may attain the Buddha way. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.